Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is a very special video as I recently hit 10k subscribers. I still can't get over the fact that 10,000 people cared enough to subscribe. And since I wanted to do something more special and involve you guys a little bit more on my channel, I asked you to submit some of you guys' opinions so I can react to them and tell them what I think and give my own opinion. I'm so sorry this has taken a while to make as I've been very busy with a new job, and I also thought I was gonna die while making my ranking K-pop songs. So yeah, I also offered people to ask me questions, so I'm gonna answer a few questions in this. I think there's 2 questions. I'm gonna answer this for one question in the beginning, and there's also another one somewhere in the middle, so you can know a little bit more about my history with K-pop before we start talking about these opinions. All right. How and when did you get into K-pop? So the first K-pop song I ever listened to was Girls' Generation's G back when it came out in 2009, I believe. I found it on my YouTube page, if I remember correctly, and from there I kind of checked out other songs under SM. And the first group I kind of fell in love with for the members and not just one song was SHINee. So I've been a fan for a while, but around maybe 2013, 2014, I kind of took a small break. I did keep up with some stuff, but not as much as I do now. So I got back into K-pop properly around 2015 when 17 had their debut, and I've been stuck ever since then. So for some context, I'm 22 years old. So yeah, I've been in this for a while, but for the past maybe 6 years or so, I've been most into K-pop than more into K-pop than I was when I started, if that makes sense. K-pop YouTube is getting seriously boring. Literally every video is the same: unpopular opinions, ranking outfits, Ollie London, line distribution, and so on. Every YouTuber just seems bored nowadays. I kind of agree with you on this. I usually don't actually watch other K-pop YouTubers unless I'm very bored. I don't really care what some random person says about this new trend or if they liked the newest Twice song or not. I usually enjoy more videos that, this is gonna sound weird, I do, where they deep dive, longer deep dives about one topic or a group or a genre or something like that. And I like to learn about K-pop. I think it's just a lot more fun when you learn something. I want to learn about the industry. I don't want to know why Stacy from Boston thinks Twice stage outfits are bad. If you like that, that's totally fine, but often it gets boring and it's always the same opinions and the same topics. So I 100% agree with this opinion. So on the same note, here's another K-tube opinion. The K-pop community on YouTube focuses too much on negativity for sake of views, offensive unpopular opinions, worst of blank rankings, calling high-quality songs horrible or trash, basically completely disregarding all the hard work that has been put into these releases. Once again, I completely agree with this person. I know that these kind of negative videos get clicks and that's why people make them, but I just don't understand why people have to make such negative videos. There's a difference in giving an opinion and shitting on idols, a song, or so on, and I think that line often gets blurred. Of course, you can say what you want. It's your channel, but I just think there's so much else that can be covered, and doing the same 5 negative videos over and over on your channel is just tiring. I feel like these kind of negative videos are also often used to attack idols, and they're not giving an unbiased opinion. And as I said before, these videos just aren't for me. They're overly negative, and if you like that, it's totally fine. But I just feel like there's so much else that can be covered in these YouTube spaces. And more recently, there's been a lot of videos where people go over the K-YouTubers that they don't like, and I'm just why is this a trend? It also usually the same people, the same 5 YouTubers in these videos, and again, it just gets repetitive and not fun. I don't like seeing other people's negative opinions. I don't want to see someone ripping someone else down just for some views, if that makes sense. With the amount of scandals regarding sexual assault, hidden cameras, and misogyny in general, it really makes me scared and wonder how many of the male idols I like share those thoughts and actions. The fact that some people can be so two-faced and live double lives is terrifying, and it gives me trust issues. At the end of the day, we truly don't know them. So I understand the thought of this, and I myself had this thought process from time to time, but At the same time, you can't let those thoughts shape your view on K-pop, because yes, this is a issue in K-pop and in Korea and in Asia overall, but this happens all over the world. And if you think this way about your favorite K-pop singers, you should think the same way about any singer, actor, or just even people on the street. Yes, you never know how a person is, and you should be cautious, but I don't think it's fair to the idol or even you yourself as a fan to think that everyone is a shitty person. If one of your favorite idols gets exposed for being a bad person in some way, that doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't reflect your actions just because you liked an idol that was a shitty person. These idols, to some extent, have to act a certain way, so you never really know them 100%. Like, there are some idols that are more open and honest, but they're still an idol, and there's still some certain idol standards. And trust me, I have had this talk with myself, especially after the Burning Sun scandal and everything that followed, but I just think we shouldn't assume the worst of people, because that's no way to live. Also, I just want to mention that in this opinion, this person speaks specifically about male idols, and yes, although, for example, the Burning Sun scandal was mainly male idols, I think we shouldn't put all the burden on male idols, because female idols can also be two-faced people. You know what I mean? It's not just the male idols, but again, I don't think we should be like wondering and like almost hoping that idols get outed for being two-faced. I just think it's no way to live as a fan, and it makes K-pop not fun. Just because I ult/stan a group doesn't mean I have to like everything they put out. I hate when some people say you're not a true fan, insert fan base name, if you don't support X, Y, and Z. Oh my god, yes. I 100% agree with this. I love a lot of groups, but it's not statistically possible for me to like every single thing they put out. 17 and SHINee are my ultimate groups, and I can for sure say that there are some releases that I'm not into. That shouldn't make you or me a worse fan. It's like saying you love cake and then later say, oh, this certain carrot cake isn't for me. It wasn't good. Does that mean that you don't like all cake now? Of course not. That's just not how it works. I used to be so scared of saying I didn't like a release or a song just because I didn't want to get like backlash or be called a fake fan. And now I don't really care that much. Will I get sad that I don't like a song that one of my favorite groups put out? Of course, because I want to be able to help them and listen to the song and stream. But I don't look at myself as a less than fan just because I don't like a song. So in this household being my channel, we don't force ourselves to like stuff just to prove we're real fans. Thank you very much. I don't think YG is gonna produce another girl group for at least another 5 years, considering how big Blackpink is. So originally I wasn't planning on including this, but I just had to, just because I wanted to correct this opinion. That sounds really weird, but actually YG is actually already planning on releasing a new girl group sometime in May. I believe YG confirmed that he is debuting a new group in 2021. Now, that might change due to everything that's going on in the world, but apparently YG has already copyrighted names like Baby Monster and Babymon. Now, that doesn't mean the group is going to be called that, because sometimes companies will copyright multiple names and then not use them. So YG is already planning a new girl group. I just wanted to let this person know, and if someone else might think that. But honestly, if I didn't know that YG was planning on debuting a new group, I think that I would think he was going to do that, because YG has lost a lot of revenue and money in the past year. So I think even though they have Blackpink, it's not enough. You know what I mean? So these are two opinions, so I decided to link them together. GFriend was kicked out of Source Music by HYBE as they were intimidated by their success, and disbanding GFriend was one of the worst decisions Source Music could have made. So I wanted to include these together as they kind of touch on the same topic, so I'm going to talk about the first one now. Now, although I can't say for sure, as I don't work for HYBE, I am 80% sure that HYBE has no power over Source Music or any other company under them. The deal that HYBE or Big Hit made with companies like Source Music or Pledis was not to own those groups and those companies. At least as far as we know, HYBE only provides money and overall financial help to help the companies, as well as assistance with stuff like studio. So HYBE puts in money to these companies in the hopes that they're going to get more money back in return. So HYBE technically shouldn't have a say in what Source Music or Pledis does, as they don't own the groups under those companies. It's similar to CJ They're a very large company that owns smaller companies like Jellyfish, KQ, and On. These companies are still their own companies, they just get support from a bigger one. So I highly doubt that HYBE had anything to do with GFriend's disbanding, unless there's some rules or laws in the contract that we don't know about, because I know with Pledis and HYBE, it was specifically announced that Pledis would still act as their own company, so I'm assuming it's the same for Source Music. So technically, HYBE shouldn't have any effect on what happens within Source Music. Now, for the second part and the second opinion, I kind of agree, but also kind of disagree. I agree because Source Music doesn't really have anyone else to promote, because I believe that they don't have any active artists. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but according to the Wikipedia page, they only have former artists listed there now. Sure, they might plan on debuting a new group, but when GFriend was their main and maybe only source of money, they kind of screwed themselves over. On the other hand, I kind of have to disagree, because GFriend was getting a lot of backlash just before their disbandment, and I'm not sure how many fans, at least international ones, would have reacted to a comeback, or even if they would have stuck around. Do I think the disbandment was shitty and probably rushed? For sure, but I also think that Source Music had a great reason for this. Unless, of course, the girls themselves decided to disband, but I honestly don't believe that. So, although I think it's fishy, I think Source Music was worried about the future, which I think is a valid reason and a valid excuse. But also, I think Source Music are cowards for disbanding GFriend that quickly after the whole scandal that happened. I hate seeing groups with cute concepts change their concept to something darker and more mature, especially if they start getting attention only after changing their concept. I'm a huge fan of cute concepts, and seeing more and more groups change from cute to girl crush makes me really sad. I understand the struggle a lot. I am a sucker for a cute concept, and that concept is just not very big in K-pop anymore. I think there's a difference in subtly changing your concept versus growing up and showing that through music. I think groups like Twice are a good example of girl groups that had a cute concept, but as they grew up, they changed their concept. They're still not doing the whole dark, mature girl crush concept, but their music shows a kind of maturity and growth. But then there's groups that will suddenly change their concept, either for bad or for good, like CLC did back in 2016 and 2017. CLC came back with their song High Heels and then released No Oh No. The latter song wasn't like the typical cute girl crush, but it was still, fitted their concept that CLC had. That whole concept jump wasn't crazy, but when they went from High Heels and No Oh No to Hobgoblin, it was such a concept change, and it was very shocking. Then they decided to go back to the soft girl group concept, and it was very confusing. And I think it gave a lot of fans backlash, and they just didn't know what CLC was, and therefore people just didn't want to support the group because they couldn't tell what the concept was. The same thing kind of happened with Momoland, where they switched from the carnival theme to a sound of boom boom and bam. There's so many examples like this, and often these groups never go back, and that kind of leaves us short on these cute girl group concepts, which breaks my heart. Okay, for this opinion, I'm going to put a trigger warning. Although I'm not going to be going into details, please skip if you don't want to hear about me talk about depression, mental health, self-harm, and Mina's from AOA's health issues overall. The timestamp is on the screen if you want to skip. Mina from AOA needs help and should stay off the internet for a while. So before I actually start talking about my opinion, I want to say that I wrote the script before it was announced on the 29th of July that Mina had tried to take her own life again. Although I did not change my script at all, I do want to make it clear that I know what's happening, and yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that this was written before and I'm aware of what is happening right now. So I've thought about this a lot, and just about Mina over the past few weeks. First of all, I want to say that I 100% agree with this opinion. Mina clearly needs help, and some of the stuff that she has been sharing online is really upsetting to me and other people, and I wish she didn't share those things. But at the same time, she is very sick, and it's not an excuse, but I think she has a lot of issues, and I don't think she understands completely what is acceptable to share, and I think her mind is kind of not messed up, but I think her perspective on things is kind of skewed. She just should not be online, and she should be focusing on getting help. But getting help is very hard. Not only is it hard because of the internal struggle that you deal with, and trust me, I know that because I've been there, and those feelings are really hard, and I'm finally getting help myself after 10 years. But it's just not as simple as getting up and walking into a therapist's office and walking out an hour later and being totally healed. It takes a lot of time, and taking that step can be very hard. Now imagine dealing with this in a country that the society looks down upon speaking up about your mental health issues. And overall, Korea is known for not being open about their mental health issues. And Korea has a very huge issue with stigmatizing mental health issues like depression. On top of that, places that do offer mental health help are often very underfunded. Korea has the 10th highest suicide rate in the world according to the World Health Organization, and second highest according to the OECD, or the Organizations for Economic Cooperation and Development. And back in 2014, the fourth most common death in South Korea was suicide. Now, Korea and the K-pop industry has gotten a lot better in the past few years with mental health. As you can see, some idols taking breaks due to anxiety and just overall mental health, but it's still a very serious issue, and we have a long way to go. So Mina is not only dealing with her own demons, but also living in one of the most judgmental societies and countries there is when it comes to this stuff. Not only that, but she has to deal with it in front of like the whole wide world watching her and judging her. Now, I also want to make it clear that you should not like be scared of talking about Mina or talk about the way she's acting, because that is not okay. Like, Mina has issues that should not be sharing online, and she should be getting help and just take a break from the internet. Amina has done things that have personally triggered me as a person that deals with mental health issues. And I 100% think that some of the things she has done, like posting certain stuff, is not okay. So don't think I'm like giving her a free pass for the way she acts. But I think there's no reason why people should attack someone that is already so down. Like, it's not doing any good. So I don't know why Mina is getting so attacked when she just needs a lot of help. But that's all I'm gonna say on this opinion. I'm so sorry. This was a long rant. Oh my god, sorry. I think YG's strategy of starving Blinks by barely putting out any music and content will be Blackpink's downfall. With this opinion, I honestly don't know what to think, because on the one hand, I think there's a huge possibility that people will lose interest, because I've seen it happen with some groups before because they had so little content. For examples that I can think off the top of my head, Newest and their messy promotion was the downfall of the group before they joined Produce 101. Now, I don't want to make it sound like Newest didn't have any fans, but Pledis made the active decision to ship Newest off to Japan, where they basically stopped completely interacting with Korean fans. Their biggest fan base stopped making songs for the Korean audience, and therefore they lost their hype in Korea. So I think this can happen. It does happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of fans left the fandom to find other groups that are more active. But then on the other hand, Blackpink has such a huge fandom, and they're so popular in general. They're one of the biggest groups ever, like not just K-pop, but in the today they're one of the biggest artists in the world. And I think it shows when their song How You Like That came out, because it was literally all over. Like, random people on TikTok that were not even fans of K-pop would use the song in their TikToks and such. But I think Blackpink might be in deep shit if YG's focus shifts to their new group that I was talking about earlier, because YG is one of those companies that barely can focus on one group at a time, let alone two. I think we're gonna have to wait and see a little bit. And I'm very curious what you guys think about this one. So please, if you can, I want to hear your opinions on all of these, but specifically this one, what do you guys think? Because I'm in the middle with this one. This is another question. Are there any first gen or second gen groups and soloists that you like? So again, this is not opinion, but as I said at the start of the video, I offered you guys to send me some questions, and I really like this one, and I just wanted to take some time to talk about the start of K-pop, because not a lot of fans look back back on the first and second generation these days. So for those who might not know, the first generation refers to the actual start of K-pop. Like, of course, Korean music was around for way longer, but K-pop that we know today started in the 1990s and was around till the 2000s, 2010s. The group Sotalchi and Boys was considered the start of K-pop, as they started a new pop sound in Korea that was inspired and incorporated Western-style pop music. From the style to the dance and the sound, the K-pop genre started there. Groups that are from the first generations are groups like G.O.D, H.O.T, Shinhwa, SES, Shitskis, and solo artists like BoA, just to name a handful. Now let me actually answer the actual question. I wouldn't say like I am a fan of any particular group, but for sure some of my favorite K-pop songs overall come from the first generation. So if you haven't, I highly recommend checking out these songs. SES's song I'm Your Girl and Be Natural are very good. If you're a fan of Red Velvet, then the second song probably sounds very familiar to you. Shinhwa also has some great songs, and my favorites that I can think off the top of my head are songs like Perfect Man and Wild Eyes. They also have a very good song from a more recent album that's called Venus. H.O.T's songs like Happiness and Candy are also great. Shitski's Couple is one of my favorite songs ever, and it makes me so happy. BoA's Number One is also really good. So Taochi and Boys Come Back Home song is very good, and I actually prefer that one over the BTS cover that they made. And lastly, I kind of a love-hate relationship with the song, but Park Ji-hoon's coming of age ceremony, like, I love the song, but I also have like a really icky feeling about it. If you don't know why, I highly recommend checking out my Iceberg video. As for second gen, I'm probably very biased when it comes to these songs, as this was the time that I kind of joined K-pop and started listening. This was kind of the time that I started listening to K-pop. I'm not gonna list a bunch of songs because I could be here a whole day, but some groups that I recommend that have like great discographies is SHINee, FX, After School, Sistar, Nine Muses, and so on. And like if I'm ever feeling down, I just find a really good second generation playlist, and it just makes me so happy and gets me in a better mood. Yeah, I could talk about second generation for forever, so I'm not gonna bore you with this. I think people love to use members' death for clout. Like, they would be hating on the group members and the group for ages, but when a member dies, they would be so nice, acting like they love the member and care for them, when in reality, they hated on them and were a part of their death. So I'm gonna have to put another trigger warning here, again for death, slight mention of suicide, and such, that are hard to listen to, so if you want, feel free to skip. Also, if you're sensitive to hearing about certain passings like Junghyun, Sully, Guhara, Eunbi, Rise, and so on, please skip, and I'll make sure to put a timestamp on the screen for you. So this is definitely a very hard-hitting opinion, and it has a few layers, but I have to agree because I've seen this happen firsthand multiple times. Now, there's nothing wrong with getting sad when someone passes away. That's completely normal. Now, where I draw the line is where you pretend to love an idol that you were like their biggest supporter, when in reality you didn't know them, or like this person mentioned the opinion, you actively were against them or hated them or disliked them. When Junghyun passed away, my life felt like I was falling apart. I remember the night before I found out so vividly. I had been out the night before with a few of my friends. We had been driving around, and one of the person in the car didn't know a lot about SHINee, so we started playing some songs. Now keep in mind, this person only knew a handful of groups like BTS and Blackpink. And then I got dropped off late at night, and I went to bed as I had school the next day. I woke up to my phone having a Facebook message, and there's a link, which was very strange because it was from a person, the same person that I had been in the car with the other night, and I really never talked to them on Facebook. I also noticed multiple Snapchat messages from my best friend who was with me in the car the night before. I clicked the message with a link because I was really curious why this person was sending me a Facebook message, and I just couldn't believe that this person had said, "Did you see? Junghyun is dead." And then sent me a link to an article about his death. My head was spinning as I got another message from my best friend, so I clicked on it, and she was begging me not to open the messages on Facebook from this other person because she knew that's not how you break these kind of news to someone. I honestly don't remember a whole lot after that. The whole week after his passing was just a blur, and I actually stayed home faking to be sick for most of that week. Now, I'm telling you this story because the person who did not know SHINee or Junghyun after his passing, actively went on Jungkook's social media to follow him and would actively play his music in front of me when he knew I was having a hard time. And he would say, oh my god, I love their music. I've known about that. Like, he would talk about SHINee and Jungkook in specific, like he knew about them before that night in the car. I have also met a few other people in personal life that for some reason decided to start loving SHINee and Jungkook specifically after not showing interest in them after Jungkook died. And again, I saw this with Soleil's passing. I saw some people online who had never even liked FX or even bashed on the group for having bad songs, and then saying, oh, I loved Soleil, she was so nice, I loved FX. No, you didn't. Shut the fuck up. And this happened again with Guhara. Now, I myself was a fan of SHINee and FX, but I wasn't a huge fan of Kara, besides liking a song or two. So what do? Like a normal person, I pay for my specs and shut the fuck up. An idol's passing isn't about you. It's not about how you can make a cool Twitter thread about them and then link the song that you know they were in and we're like, oh my god, this is my favorite song. There's a difference in being upset and making it about you. And it really shows who are actually upset versus the people that want to make some easy clout over a person's death. And I see it all the time, and it's fucking annoying. This was a huge issue with Soleil's passing, where Korean netizens would attack her for nothing and then be shocked when she took her own life, and they were literally like, oh no, not Soleil, we loved her. No, you didn't. These same people were the ones who were attacking her for literally nothing. This doesn't only happen with idols that take their own lives. This also happens with groups like Ladies Code after Eunbi and Rise passed from a horrible accident. The group was just looked at like, oh no, poor Ladies Code. Ladies Code is almost just known for two of their members passing away. Like, you don't have to mention the two members passing away every chance you get, okay? That's rude and disrespectful. Eunbi, Rise, Jungkook, Soleil, Guhara, and any other idol or actors that have lost their life too early, they're not just their deaths. They should not be remembered as how they left this world. Their lives meant something. Their passing is not an opportunity for you to gain likes and sympathy. Stop it, you look fucking dumb. I'm so sorry. I got really heated. Okay, sorry. The military delaying thing is unfair because it only helps BTS. There's so many other artists that have done so much for the industry and the country, but they get nothing. This is a very interesting opinion, and I honestly have a lot to say. For those who might not know what this is exactly about, firstly, let's talk about Korea's military service. Korea has a law that mandates males from 18 to 28 to serve anywhere from 18 to 22 months in the military. There are a few people that do get exempt, like people with disabilities and so on. There's also a law that was placed in 1973 that allows certain athletes to be exempt. For example, after a wrestler in the 1976 Summer Olympics won a gold medal, he was granted exemption from serving. Now there's a regulation that states that athletes that win medals at the Olympics or gold medals at the Asian Games are given exemptions from military service. There's also exemptions given for violinists, pianists, ballet performers, actors, and even directors. Now, most recently, a new bill was passed where pop artists can be given a recommendation by the Minister of Culture, Sport, and Tourism due to them greatly enhancing the image of Korea both in Korea and worldwide, and therefore they can postpone their military enlistment by 2 years. Now, this law was passed around the same time Jin was about to turn 28, which is the same age that he has to enlist for because it's his last year in the regular laws. Now, you might ask, well, okay, BTS is giving K-pop and Korea spotlight. Why is that so amazing for South Korea? Not only is BTS giving South Korea a lot of attention, but BTS and their company contributes over $4 billion to Korea's economy every year. So it's not just about the attention the group brings, but also the money. Now, there's a lot of discourse about BTS if they should be allowed to bend the rules like this, and some say that this law was just made for BTS, as it is unlikely that this law will be used again for other artists, and that's why it's often called the BTS law. Now, what I want to say is that does it really matter that the members themselves serve? Besides this law, let's look past that. Why does it matter if they enlist and when they enlist? It's not like the Korean military needs more people. There's over 500,000 active members of the military and over 2.7 million people on reserve. For those who might not know, after you serve in the military, you're not actually done. For an X amount of time after you serve, you're still listed in the military. So let's say if an active war breaks out and you maybe served 2 years ago, you will be called to fight as you're still in reserve. I hope that makes sense. So what I'm basically saying is, does it really matter that 7 dudes join the military now or in 2 years? It really doesn't change. It doesn't really matter when they join because they have a lot of people. I personally think that the military service shouldn't be mandatory. I understand the thought that other idols like SHINee and Super Junior, Monsta X and so on have to serve, so BTS should. And I also understand the thought that everyday Korean men have to go, and at the end of the day, BTS are just normal people, and therefore they should go as well. I understand that, but I don't think it matters if 7 dudes go now or later. Also, the word military can kind of scare people, but often these people and idols are not even doing anything insane. Like, have you seen the clips of Key and Changsub? I'm obviously kidding, but that's not all they do in the military, but still. And honestly, I personally don't care that much that BTS's military enlistment was delayed. Maybe I would feel differently if I was Korean because I know their view of the military service is different. And I think a lot of people that are attacking BTS are just salty that their faves had to go, but BTS is not going. And also, from what I understand, this is only a delay of military service, not cancellation of military service or exemption. The law that was recently passed, it was only to delay the military service by 2 years. So that doesn't even mean that BTS is not going to serve. So I think a lot of people are getting the two confused as well. I don't like how some safety shorts are longer than the actual shorts on female idols. I 100% agree with this. Like, of course it can happen that the safety shorts are visible. That's why they're there. But if a company is known for using safety shorts as basically an outfit, that pisses me off. Like, there's so many times where idols can be seen wearing such short ass dresses that they look more like shirts on them. Other times, stylists will literally include the shorts in the outfit like they are meant to be seen. Like, that happens so often with Twice during Feel Special era. But I also think it's really bad when companies give some idols safety shorts and some don't. This happened a lot with Momoland, especially in their Boom Boom era. And I talked about this in my Momoland video, so I'm not going to talk about the topic too long. And there's so many examples of idols clearly being uncomfortable in their outfits, and they can't move properly, and their outfits keep rolling up, and I feel like the style is just like, oh, that's totally fine, they're wearing shorts underneath. But these shorts aren't meant to be seen. I think these stylists and companies just need to do a lot better. I have 2 opinions that kind of go hand in hand, so let me read them together. K-pop artists/groups from smaller companies that are unpopular make better songs than bigger artists and groups. And the other one is, not trying to be rude or anything, but just because a member is from a big company doesn't mean that they're more talented or hardworking than a person from a smaller company. So I would say that I support both big company groups and small company groups. Like, some of my favorites are SHINee, 17, GWSN, Pink Fantasy, Twice, and so on. So let's start with the first opinion. I honestly don't think I agree. This is a personal opinion, so I think this person has the right to think that way, and I probably would have too, but I thought about this a few times. Personally, I think it's pretty even. Some releases by big companies are horrible, and some by smaller companies are horrible. Big companies usually have a lot more money to spend on outsourcing producers and songwriters. Meanwhile, smaller companies often don't have the money to outsource as often. And also keep in mind, there's a lot more of smaller companies, and therefore a lot more of releases, and therefore more chances of making a good song. Now, as for idols under companies, I completely agree. There's nothing that says or proves that idols under bigger companies are more talented.
Do they have a more chance of getting better training? Yes, of course, but still talent is not just found in big companies. Sadly, those talented idols under the smaller companies don't get the recognition they deserve. So people that think that their idols are the best or most talented just because they are under SM or JYP, you're being delusional. It just wouldn't work statistically like that. There's no way it works like that. Although they did mention this in the opinion, I want to add that I personally don't think there's a bad or untalented idol, because being an idol in itself is hard work. Like, I would never be able to do that. So people who shit on idols for not being as vocally talented as someone else is just stupid to me. I'm getting tired of stans throwing around the "my bias is mistreated" card. The word has lost all its seriousness. In most cases, it's a simple mismanagement or maybe favoritism. I'm not denying that there isn't any mistreatment or abuse in the industry. Of course there is. But in these cases, we fans will never know until the idols themselves come out and sue the company. I 100% agree. Honestly, don't think some people know the difference between mistreatment and mismanagement. Like, it's not mistreatment if your favorite member doesn't get a lot of lines. Is it unfair and maybe not fun when your favorite member isn't getting enough lines, not the coolest outfits, and maybe not enough screen time? Yes, it's maybe unfair, but that doesn't mean it's mistreatment. You can't say that that is mistreatment when some of these companies are starving their idols, making them live in horrible condition, won't pay them the money that they're owed, and in some cases actually physically and sexually abusing their idols. Can we really compare that to line distribution? Now, don't get me wrong, you can voice your upset over line distribution or whatever else the company is doing that they could be doing better, but please don't throw around words like mistreatment when it's probably not mistreatment. Butter is just a money hit, and the only reason why it stays as number one for numerous weeks is because the fan base and the enormous amount of remixes to increase the sales. It does not reflect the actual popularity of the song in the US accurately at all. So, I first want to talk about Butter. I don't think personally it's a money-making hit, however, I think there is a reason why it is in English, and I think the reason is that BTS and their company Hybe or Big Hit saw the potential in the Western market and therefore decided to make it in English. I'm myself personally not a fan of Butter, but of course that doesn't mean people that are streaming the song don't like it, and I've seen a lot of people that actually really love Butter, and that's totally fine. But I think that they made a conscious decision to make it in English because they knew they would get more money. However, aren't all K-pop songs money hits? Because companies don't make songs just to make a song. They're expecting money from it. It's all about money at the end of the day. Like, yes, there are a lot of artists that really care about their music and care and they're passionate, but at the end of the day, the music and albums that they're releasing is to make money. And that's just the way it is. That's not a bad thing, because of course they need money to make more songs and make, like, the companies need money to keep up the idols, to make another song, to make another album. Overall, all K-pop songs and albums are money makers and money hits, or you know what I mean. So, yeah, I also want to say that I don't judge BTS for releasing the song in English. I just personally think it's pretty clear that they knew what they were doing with the song, and that's totally fine. I respect that, and I respect people that like Butter, but personally, I don't like it. And yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like, you know, on one hand, I agree that they made Butter to make a lot of money, but at the same time, that's what all K-pop companies do. So, yeah. Stop normalizing lip syncing. They train for years to debut as singers and dancer. Their job is to dance and sing at the same time, no matter how hard the choreography is. Their job is to sing live and dance at the same time. Stop defending idols that lip sync all the time because they're not doing their job. Only if idols are sick, they can lip sync to not damage their vocal cords. I kind of have to disagree with this opinion. I want to start by saying that I personally love live vocals. I prefer live vocals, and that's one of the things I loved about second generation K-pop, is that the live stages were actually live. They weren't perfect, and that's totally fine. However, I don't think these idols that lip sync or maybe use backing tracks are any less than. I talked a lot about lip syncing in one of my iceberg videos and the difference between like live vocals, live tracks, and lip syncing, and like whatever. So if you want to like hear me talk more about like the differences, please go check that out. Now, yes, these idols usually train for years. However, no amount of training trumps what the human body can physically do. We get tired, we get short breath. With the amount of dancing idols do in each performance, it's just not logistic to expect them to sing live all the time. Like, there's no way Twice can sing flawlessly while dropping down on the ground. There's no way these idols can hit these very high notes while jumping around for 3 minutes. And maybe if they're just performing it like once, then sure, sing it live, but these idols, and especially before the pandemic, would have to perform the song multiple times a day. And often these idols actually have to sing in a different tone from their actual voice and to fit either a group sound or whatever. So they're putting a lot of strain on their voice. So trying to sing live in a tone that's not your normal natural voice can really fuck up your vocal cords. But if an idol is singing with no like dancing and it's just like a ballad, that's where I like draw the line, and that's where I want to hear live vocals. There's no reason or an excuse why this should be lip syncing. But overall, I don't really see anything wrong with lip syncing, because Lord knows I could never sing and dance at the same time, but that's also a personal preference. I know there's a lot of people that hate lip syncing, and that's totally fine. I just think that we shouldn't put that much amount of stress and burden on idols. Momo and Hicho shouldn't date because he's a creep. Like, think about it. When Momo was born, this dude was in high school. Creepy age gap. So this is kind of a hard subject, and it's something that really depends on a personal opinion, but I personally don't think there's anything wrong with them dating. I've seen a lot of misinformation going around, like the fact that she was underage when they first met each other, but she was never underage. Okay, so Momo was born in November of 1996. The show 16 happened between May and July of 2015. Momo was already 18 by that point. And when Twice debuted in October of 2015, Momo was almost 19 years old. Now, if we look at a timeline and official statements, Momo and Hicho first met, at least publicly, on July of 2016 on Weekly Idol. Momo was 19 going on 20 then. Jumping to 2019 in August when the two companies denied the dating rumors, and then in January of 2020 when they confirmed they were dating. Now, we don't actually know how long they were dating, but let's say that they were dating since August of 2019. Momo was already 22, turning 23 years old. I think I have to make it clear that Momo and Hicho never met until she was over 18, and I've heard these accusations of grooming and stuff. That's really weird to me. Hicho was born in 1983, so there's a 13-year age gap. Now, everyone can have their own opinions, but I don't think it's creepy. Like, can it be a little strange or maybe not conventional and maybe like not like the best for them because there's such an age difference? Yes, but creepy? No. A lot of people have huge age gaps, and also Hicho himself has once said that he was in a relationship with someone that was 13 years older than him. So why is no one having issues with that? Is it because Momo is a woman and he's a man? I think people also tend to not think about the fact that the dating scene is very hard for idols, and finding someone in your circle can be hard. I personally don't think that it was creepy, as Momo is a grown woman. She's 24 years old. Now, which people, like, I think some people, like, think she's a kid, but she's a grown woman. She's old enough to make her own decisions. As you probably know, Momo and Hicho have broken up, so it doesn't really matter now, but I think it's going too far to, like, throw around words like creep or the P word or, like, a groomer, because there's a difference in that and maybe, you know, wanting to, like thinking, like, oh, you should date in your own age range. Like, you know, like, she should date a 20-something-old and he should date a 30-something-old. There's a huge difference in that and, like, a groomer or something like that. Line distribution isn't important. So technically, no, line distribution isn't that important. If you're listening to a random K-pop song, the line distribution isn't going to affect the way of the song sounds or the listening experience or how you perceive the song. It doesn't affect the song if Joy or Sulki sings the third sentence in the second word of a random song, right? But As a fan of a group, I think it does matter. An unfair line distribution means that the members don't get to show their talents equally. So let's say I'm a person who wants to get into a group and listen to an album or two. I might not be able to pick up buyers properly or won't be able to see the members' potential, style, and talent and abilities because they're not getting equal distribution. If you're a fan of a member that doesn't get a lot of lines, you might not get to hear your bias a lot, you won't see them as often on live shows, because usually no lines equals no screen time. So overall, yes, line distribution isn't important to the song and K-pop, like when you listen to it, but if you're an involved K-pop fan or care about that kind of stuff, it can be very important. And the last one, the only reason K-pop groups nowadays are trying to be global is because of the success of BTS in the US. I will have to agree with this. Idols and companies are seeing the money and attention BTS is getting from the international and specifically USA market. And I honestly think it's a little bit too much sometimes when companies do this. Like for example, when groups have a choreo that is obviously made for like TikTok dances because those always go viral, and the songs that go viral on TikTok get the streams and the money. So on one hand, I don't mind when these idols go on TV shows in the USA. Like, I don't really care about that. What I do have an issue is when these idols go on these interviews and shows and the hosts clearly don't care about these idols and they know nothing about them, and they just want to have them there because they know K-pop fans will tune in. So if anything, I'm more annoyed about these shows and these like other artists and other people in the Western market using K-pop idols for clout almost. So because often it's so like obvious that they don't really care about K-pop. But I also don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to want to be on the global market, if that makes sense. Like, I think it has both good qualities and bad qualities, but inherently, I don't think it is a bad thing to want to be a global artist.
Alright, but that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I didn't realize that this was gonna be this long, but I would love to hear your guys' opinions on these opinions and also my opinion. That's a little confusing. So you can leave all your opinions or just one or whatever. That's why they're all numbered, so you can respond to them. And yeah, I'm just, genuinely curious about how my viewers think. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.